for a very long time, I believed that education and awareness was the panacea. It was a magic wand. But it took me a while, maybe you'll see with that article that that's when I really started to open my mind and my eyes to that. But what education? Because education is what we decide is supposed to be known, and education praises certain behaviors and things and cultures and perspectives, and raises them over others. And without and for a long time it's been like that, without looking at the consequence of that, because the schooling system we have has also taught us that education works that way. You bring a child in, you suppress things that aren't desirable elements, and you raise what's important, and hopefully they've got 2 cents to choose what you've taught them is right. So we think that's what is applicable in conservation, getting into a territory, telling the people there that this is what is right, this is how you should do things. So I think it's not the panacea. Conservationists are not educators, they're scientists. They're people who care about the environment and know to protect it. They're not spiritualists. They shouldn't be teaching on what's correct and wrong on cultural beliefs or traditions, but they should be finding ways to teach and learn. That is the correct model of education that I now believe in. Teaching and learning from people on what's the most beneficial for them as a collective body and the environment. So I think we need to reevaluate, we need to reevaluate and step back, see what is slowing down our process of conservation, what is slowing down the behavioral changes of people we're trying to reach out to, and see if those things that we're doing that slow down that progress are worth holding on to over the cause itself. Because for some things, it's just prejudice that make us do things the way we want to do them, though those things don't work. And if we let go of those prejudices, things would move even smoother. If we want it, sometimes it's not learning from the communities, it's wanting to walk in, waltz in, tell them what to do. And then a few years down the line, we actually learned that, oh, they actually have been doing something different for millennia before we came, and it had been working. And if we'd only asked and listened to them, we would have been. So the situation differs in different places. Sometimes it's just empathy, wanting to be there for the right reason, helping a community or helping a situation, not for discoveries or publishing or making a name for ourselves. Because a lot of conservation feels to me like people wanting to climb a figurative Everest. They will take the route that gets them to the top. They will not be dealing with local situations that are perpetuating the problem. They'll be fine reporting on it or picking whatever advances their careers. So it's different. It depends on where one's working, the problem one's working on. But it really starts with humanity, having humanity. Yeah.
So pretty much a two-way process, and that may be I don't know, because I've not worked in Africa as a conservationist, but that may be one of the shortfalls where, like you say, it's all very well going in there and saying, well, here are some vultures, and I'm coming on to your other article now, but here are some vultures and they need protecting, but they need to understand how that particular species fits in with the culture and what is actually happening around the vulture's territory. I think where I'm going with this is actually it's two-way education process. It's not somebody from outside of Africa coming into Africa and going, these need protecting, therefore this is what you need to do and this is why they need protecting. It's going in and saying, well, tell us how you're living with these creatures and how we can work together in order to conserve them.
The thing is with wildlife and a lot of things that are African or from the global south, it's open source, community resources, global resources. Although the same should apply for the global north, it usually doesn't. So we find ourselves in situations where Europeans have rights and say, which is cool, which is fine, but it creates a relationship where the voices of the people that are affected the most or should have the first say are stifled, are trampled on. Sometimes not, never even, um, what's the word? It's escaping me. Considered, you know, some conferences, some huge sessions can be done, dusted, and sealed, talking about territories where the people there are not consulted or invited to the table. I think conservationists who are passionate about African wildlife need to understand that Africa isn't just a location on a map. It's not just a point on a map. It's a home. It's a home to not just the wildlife that they love. It's a home to the people, and it's their natural heritage. Their people are not barbaric or senseless. This wildlife is our natural heritage. It's our totems. We bear surnames that have got clan praises and totems named after a lot of these animals, and it's in our historic and ancestral interest for these animals to perpetuate and to go on. So the prejudice really that a lot of people approach Africans or third world countries in conservation is what makes things unsuccessful, makes work unproductive. Talking to people, to learn from them, not to tick a box, not to tell them what to do, talking to people to reason with them, and not to make a mockery or folly of their beliefs or their ways of living in life. I mean, hell, every community in the world comes from that. But just some communities have their beliefs or histories respected above others. I will give you an example of the time I did Vulture awareness talks at the Zimbabwe International Trade Fair. I had this brilliant idea. I grew up going to the trade fair. Everyone, Southern Africa, comes to the trade fair to set up exhibitions for their businesses. And I just thought I could set up a stand and talk about vultures, which was, going to stand out, which is exactly what I wanted, to stand out. So back to that vulture mount that I wanted to have at the kids' talk that I no longer had. I got a vulture mount and a marabou stock mount just for ambiance, because I was just going to have one bird. And I was given some lodgings in a passageway, tiny passageway in the stand, the permanent stand of the National Park, Zimbabwe National Park Authority. And over 5 days, I spoke to an average 1,000 people a day, because I was standing in the passageway and business people, then it opens on the third day to the public. And it's just people bringing their kids to learn about companies and see all sorts of displays. So it's just random people coming. And the Zim Park stand is just these busts of trophies, and it's like a nice museum like scene, and people bring their kids to see that, to have a feel of what it is like in the bush. And I was there being like, do you know what a vulture is? To everybody, literally, I was a broken record. And 90% of the people, and this was the most diverse group of people over 5 days I'd spoken to. These were business people, Zimbabweans, internationals, children, families, school groups that were passing through, and over 90% of them had opinions about vultures, but had never seen what a vulture looks like. And I had a mount there, and I was talking about vultures, handing out booklets to kids and flyers to people. I'd made a flyer, translated it to the local languages, which conservationists don't think about. But I knew what it means to me as a Ndebele person to read a flyer about conservation in my language. And in that flyer, I spoke about legislation because I need to know that this is illegal, and this bird is also protected by the law, because that information is not information that is out there. A lot of information about, the law and how it works and protecting, even legislators themselves do not know the law of conservation laws and policy. So I was doing that and talking about that, and people would be just amazed. Even just the parks staff were amazed. They knew nothing about vultures. They were asking me the basic questions. And going to your question about talking to people, the gospel I was preaching at the time was vultures do not have any powers. They've got a very good eyesight. So traditional beliefs are very wrong. Vultures have got long distance sight. They see a carcass from very far away. And then people start thinking, oh, they dream, blah, blah, blah. And people are like, oh, listen, go. And the last day of packing up the stand comes, and the vulture mount is stolen. It's gone. And that was very heartbreaking because the only people who could have stolen it would have been the staff at the park's stand. And we could not find it. And for a long time, until recently, I realized that I was literally myth busting. I was literally making a mockery of people's traditions and saying, scientists are proving that you guys are stupid. But I could have spoken about the wonderful things about vultures, the ecosystem services of vultures, the worth and value of vultures, and not made a mockery of people's beliefs, because that's not a battle you're going to win. And morally, as somebody who holds other beliefs, it's not my place to make a mockery of other people's beliefs, because I'm not going to win either way. I've made more headway talking to people about vultures and rabies and anthrax disease outbreaks than talking to them about traditional medicine being a lie or being a myth, being voodoo, stupidity. So I think people need to reevaluate when they're setting up education programs, that what agenda are they trying to push other than just winning people over to their own philosophy. Because I was trying to win people over to my philosophy, but with an agenda of trampling down and making a mockery of local traditional beliefs. So that agenda stands out more to somebody, because with all our beliefs, how we cement ourselves in our beliefs is creating barriers and defense mechanisms for anything alternative. So when something alternative comes, we're quick to first, before we get the message from it, see the things we want to protect ourselves from. In this case, they wanted to protect themselves from anybody who's making a mockery or who doesn't believe in what they believe in. And then the message is lost in translation because your ulterior motive or your motivation is hidden to you. But the people who believe otherwise, it's what comes first and forthwith to them.